Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into some of the most famous quotes that history has proven wrong. Let's get started. We look to experts, to leaders, to visionaries, expecting them to have a clearer view of the road ahead. But as we're about to see, the road of progress is often unpaved, taking wild turns that even the brightest minds of their time couldn't anticipate. So, join us as we embark on a journey through some truly epic fails in forecasting. We'll explore the context behind these pronouncements, the reasons why they might have seemed logical at the time, and the incredible world-changing developments that ultimately left them in the dustbin of historical oddities. It's a celebration of progress, a nod to humility, and a really fun look at how wrong smart people can be. And who knows, maybe we'll even learn a thing or two about how we approach the predictions of our own era. Picture it, the year is 2007. Microsoft's Steve Ballmer declared, "No chance the iPhone will get significant market share." Dominated by Nokia and BlackBerry, smartphones had physical keyboards. Ballmer cited the iPhone's $500 price and lack of a keyboard. He underestimated its potential. The iPhone redefined the mobile industry. It became the benchmark for all smartphones, a classic tale of underestimating innovation. Let's rewind the clock to 1903. The world moved at the pace of a horse. For millennia, horses were the backbone of transportation. The automobile was noisy, unreliable, and expensive. Henry Ford's Model T changed everything. The car became indispensable, transforming modern life. Cast your minds back to 1876. The undisputed king of rapid, long-distance communication was the telegraph. Companies like Western Union were giants, their network of wires and skilled operators transmitting messages across continents and oceans. Into this world stepped Alexander Graham Bell with his invention, the telephone. And what was the reaction from the incumbent giant? An internal memo at Western Union, after Bell offered to sell them his patent for $100,000, reportedly dismissed the device, stating something to the effect that this telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Bell's invention was initially met with a mixture of wonder and skepticism. Some saw it as an amusing novelty, a scientific curiosity, perhaps useful for short-distance communication between, say, a factory owner's office and his workshop, but hardly a replacement for the robust, established telegraph system. However, the telephone possessed a revolutionary advantage: immediacy and the human voice. Despite its initial shortcomings, which were steadily addressed through technological improvements like better microphones, clearer lines, and the development of telephone exchanges, its adoption began to grow. Ultimately, the telephone didn't just supplement the telegraph. For many forms of communication, it largely superseded it, fundamentally changing the fabric of society. Western Union's failure to recognize the telephone's potential is a classic example of a dominant company underestimating a disruptive technology. As the 19th century drew to a close, the world was buzzing with technological advancement. The previous decades had gifted humanity with the telegraph, the telephone, electric lighting, and early automobiles. Some felt human ingenuity was running dry. Charles H. Duell, U.S. Patent Office Commissioner in 1899, is famously quoted as saying, "Everything that can be invented has been invented." The 20th century proved this sentiment spectacularly wrong. It became the most inventive and transformative period in human history. The year is 1962. The music landscape is vibrant. Crooners like Frank Sinatra are popular, and rock and roll with Elvis and Chuck Berry has made its mark. Decca Records rejected the Beatles, predicting guitar groups were on the way out. The world was on the cusp of the British invasion, led by the Beatles. The electric guitar became a symbol of rebellion and creativity. Decca's misjudgment is a classic tale of the difficulty in predicting trends. In October 1903, the New York Times doubted powered flight, predicting it would take 1,000,000 years. Meanwhile, the Wright brothers in Dayton, Ohio, were experimenting with kites and gliders. On December 17, 1903, they achieved the first controlled, powered flight at Kitty Hawk. The New York Times was spectacularly wrong, and aviation soon transformed the world. By 1927, silent film had matured into a sophisticated global art form and a massive industry. Stars like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Greta Garbo were international icons, communicating complex emotions and narratives without uttering a single spoken word on screen. The techniques of visual storytelling, cinematography, editing, performance had reached a high degree of artistry. Theaters were packed, and Hollywood was booming. To many within the industry, this was cinema, and it was perfect as it was. The idea of adding synchronized sound seemed like a gimmick, a novelty at best. It's in this context that Harry Warner, one of the founders of Warner Brothers Studio, is famously quoted as having said, "Who the hell wants to hear actors talk?" While the exact phrasing is debated, the sentiment was certainly shared by many studio executives at the time. Adding sound presented enormous technical challenges. Recording equipment was cumbersome, theaters would need expensive new sound systems, and many silent film stars had voices or acting styles unsuited to dialogue. But Warner Brothers, then a smaller studio looking for an edge, decided to take that gamble. In 1927 they released The Jazz Singer, starring Al Jolson. The public reaction was electrifying. The transition to talkies was astonishingly rapid and utterly transformative. Harry Warner's alleged quote is a perfect example of industry insiders failing to recognize a technological shift that audiences were more than ready to embrace. In the early 1800s, naval power was synonymous with the majesty of sail. Great wooden warships, bristling with cannons and propelled by the wind caught in acres of canvas, dominated the seas. Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius who conquered much of Europe, certainly understood the strategic importance of naval power, as evidenced by his rivalry with Great Britain, the preeminent sea power of the age. It was against this backdrop that the American inventor Robert Fulton, a pioneer of steamboat technology, reportedly presented his ideas for steam-powered ships to Napoleon. Fulton envisioned vessels that could move independently of the wind, potentially revolutionizing naval warfare and commerce. Napoleon, however, was deeply skeptical. He is said to have dismissed Fulton's concept with the derisive question, "What, sir, would you make a ship sail against the wind and currents by lighting a bonfire under her deck? I have no time to listen to such nonsense." Yet, the development of steam power for maritime use continued, driven by its undeniable advantages. Steamboats like Fulton's own Clermont, launched in 1807, proved their ability to travel upstream and maintain schedules regardless of wind conditions. Over the following decades, steam technology improved dramatically. By the mid-19th century, steam-powered warships were becoming the standard, rendering purely sail-driven navies obsolete. Napoleon, for all his military brilliance on land, missed a crucial technological inflection point at sea. Lord Kelvin, born William Thomson, was a leading scientist of the 19th century. He made significant contributions to thermodynamics and electricity. As president of the Royal Society, his words carried weight. In 1895 he declared, "Heavier than air-flying machines are impossible." Yet, in 1903, the Wright brothers achieved powered flight. Kelvin's error highlights the limits of even brilliant minds. Science advances through empirical discovery and open-mindedness. The year is 1977. Computers are colossal, room-sized machines known as mainframes, or slightly smaller but still substantial mini-computers. Ken Olsen was the founder and president of Digital Equipment Corporation, or DC, a hugely successful company that was a pioneer in the mini-computer market. Olsen was a respected figure, an engineer who understood the technology of his era. It was in this context that Ken Olsen famously stated, "There is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home." From his perspective, shaped by the capabilities and costs of computers in 1977, this made a certain kind of sense. At the very same time Olsen was making this pronouncement, however, a revolution was brewing in garages and hobbyist clubs. Companies like Apple, Commodore, and Tandy were beginning to introduce the first generation of personal computers. The Apple II, the Commodore PET, the TRS-80. These machines were far less powerful than DC's mini-computers, and often seen as toys by established players in the serious computing world. But they were affordable, relatively small, and, crucially, they were programmable by their users, sparking a wave of creativity and experimentation. DC, under Olsen's leadership, largely missed the personal computer wave. Ken Olsen's quote is a poignant reminder that it's incredibly difficult to predict how new technologies will be adopted and adapted by ordinary people. So, there you have it, a whirlwind tour through some of history's most gloriously incorrect predictions. From the iPhone's no chance to the impossible flying machines, it's clear that even the most insightful individuals, the experts in their fields, can sometimes get the future spectacularly wrong. It's a humbling realization, isn't it? It reminds us that the path of progress is rarely straight, often surprising, and always in motion. The certainty of today can so easily become the amusing anecdote of tomorrow. What can we take away from these tales of mistaken foresight? Perhaps a healthy dose of skepticism towards anyone who claims to know exactly what the future holds. Perhaps a renewed appreciation for the mavericks, the innovators, the ones who ignore the chorus of "it can't be done" and quietly or not so quietly go about doing it anyway. These stories celebrate the resilience of